You never know what will happen when, how you stimulate your students, what methodologies you're going to use to, reignite that classroom. Right? Turn the music again over here. Turn it up. You should have this from education here. You want to turn up the music? Right? You got to turn up your classroom. You got to make it interesting. We got to spice it up. You are the persons who are there facilitating a process. How to use, mechanism you use. You understand? And a lot of us will say, you understand? So this is how we are going to do it and make it exciting. So we are in for an exciting teaching and learning process. Remember what Professor Jesus said? No more crap. Somebody take it to your face in a nice way though. Come on, cut the crap. Good? So we're getting up to read. Some of our colleagues have had to leave us, but you who are here are very important and we continue to learn. So we bring on 3 of our own colleagues, and what I want to say, that we're here today from persons who want to share what they are doing. And this is a teaching and learning opportunity for us. And I also want to say that these persons, Len helped me in terms of crafting the program and outlining what we should do. Because I had some thoughts, but what Len said made more sense than what I initially had. So thank you, Len. And we put it together with Professor Scott. And then when we called Shannon, she immediately said, yes. I will do this. I'm happy to share with my colleagues, and here she is. And we initially asked, I can't remember that young lady from Health Science, Miss Terrell. And she said, I don't know how to say no to you, but I'm going to reach out to my colleagues. And she did. And within moments of sending out an email, Ms. Tabitha Madam Patty responded to say, I would love to do this. So we have 3 of our own colleagues in this first panel who are going to share for about 15 to 20 minutes some exciting and some things that you may be doing, but some of the other things of what they have been doing and working well. And this is going to be ice-breaking. We're not going to capture everything, but this is going to set the tone for what we are going to do next. In the second session, during the luncheon period, we're going to have Professor Martha Meyer from FIU. She's going to talk to us whilst we eat. So we're going to have a working session with her, right? And you look young and look up, right? Good. And then we have Professor Scott, who's going to look at ethical practice. And we go through the afternoon with the course outline and the learning, and Dr. Murray. Then we have Len and Dr. Cosimo. Whatever that important name is, right? Suzanne, and the important name at the end, right? She is going to be presenting by Skype with us and with Len. We're also having the librarian. I have to check in with her. She's going to be talking about us using the library, not only Googling, you understand? Using the library, which is important. And Dr. Murray wants to talk to us about how we make effective use of our course outline, because there is order, right? And at the end of it, we're putting our students together for them to talk to us. What we want to hear from them across the floor is how they learn, and if what we're doing makes sense. And we want Ms. Biner is going to facilitate that conversation, right? With our students, and why we need to do timely marking of scripts, marking of assignments, is giving students feedback too. Because they want to know how they're doing, why they got a certain grade, which area of improvement is important, how they can improve, and so on. So we will have those conversations, but we know that we have a time management issue, so we're going to work it, right? Music, work it. You don't have that one? All right. All right. So now we're going to have the 3 presenters come for a photo op, and then back and sit in the audience so that they continue their individual sessions. Please, could you just join them and look at it so that they all look very nice? And where's DBC Scott? Our first three presenters, DBC Scott. Let's go. The camera's rolling. This is our inaugural session, so you have to capture all these moments. You're not laughing at me, right? Great. Wonderful. Thank you. So our first presenter is going to be Glenn. Yes.
Questions of myself. I find myself these days asking more questions than I have answers for in this on this topic. 10 years ago, I think when I started playing around with some technology with my courses, I thought, well, it was the next best thing to do. So you start off there, and that's a good place to start, but then you have to examine your practice to see if things work or they don't work. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. What's that? Okay, I'll fix it. With technology, you need a support cast to do it well, I find, but it's not the only thing. You can do it individually, but there are times when you need a support cast to help put things together. Because I could fix all these problems, but I'm in presentation mode, and so I'm shaking, I'm nervous, I'm not thinking straight. And imagine a lecturer preparing for a lecture whose mind is in one direction, and then things don't work, and then everything falls apart. So I guess I'm trying to excuse my way out of what's happening now. But the question I have these days is, does technology enhance learning? There used to be a time when I thought yes, and maybe I still do believe that technology can enhance learning, but I have more questions now than I had before. Incidentally, I just started studying again, and the title of my program is Technology Enhanced Learning, as part of it, so I guess I have no choice but to ask that question. So in about 20 minutes, I hope I can, I want to talk about technology enhanced learning. And I want to quickly tell you what I want to talk about. So we're going to talk about technology enhanced learning. And to answer this question, the question I just asked you, I've been looking at various, if you like, sort of theoretical ways to ask this question in search of answers. And I'm not going to bore you with theory. I actually don't understand it really well yet. But it's perspectives. We have questions, and we have to find lens through which we look at them. So, but the reason why I want to talk in 2 minutes about the socio-material perspective is not going to be new to you. In fact, let me talk about it. Of course, what is technology enhanced learning, and how do you interpret that? And some critical questions. But I really want to end off, hopefully I have saved myself 5 minutes, to talk about the need for indigenous knowledge in this domain. And you will see from some case studies that I'll present that if you just adopt, as Professor Hinson said this morning, if you just take knowledge that is there and you just use that to inform your practice or just share it with your students in a different context, maybe you might find yourself not doing really well. And so there are a couple of things we've been doing locally that is beginning to tell us that there are some contextual issues. Of course, there are material issues. We struggle with technology, we don't have good internet, yet and all the other things. How do we deal with those as a local? And I don't even know if I'm using indigenous knowledge in the right sense, but what I mean, like knowledge about what we do in our context. and instead of just adopting what others are saying to us. So I'm just going to end on that note. So I want to tell you briefly my story. Many years ago, I started working at this university. It's just over 18 years now. And when I started, there was no support. There was no support, and I want to tell you that now it's way, way better. My younger colleagues joining now have lots more support than I did. So one thing I had to do, I woke up one day and I didn't do well one year, and my dean told me I didn't get an increment, and I was terrified. I'm shaking now thinking about it. I was 22 years old, working in an environment with no support, and then you're told you're no good. I just had a BSc, so imagine how good I felt. Terrible. So I'm actually writing about that now a little bit in the context of how technology has helped me for an assignment I'm doing. But I had to turn to places, and one of the places I turned to was online. I went in search for people to help me and things to help me, and I'm speaking here to my younger colleagues. You have to find a way. You have to reach out. And I remember George saying it. George is very popular. He's in the tech space, and George is known for this theory, connectivism, and I got to meet George, and now online is a place where you can meet anybody. Dear old little boy from Berbice. I'm a Barbician too, I must declare. But the technology made it possible for me to kind of find my way. And George said something to me. It was 2011, and so it was 2 years after my initial foray in. And he said something to me, I can't remember exactly what, and I was Googling for it, but they've now moved the website. But he said something to the effect that, Len, keep doing what you're doing, pretty soon you'll figure out what works and what doesn't work. He wasn't giving me a recipe, and then that kind of set me off. It wasn't maybe a comforting answer, but it was something that set me in search. And so my journey kind of started there. So I just went. I took a dive. It's very risky, I know. Sometimes people don't respond and all that, but you have to do that. So why I put that up? Because this quest for figuring out what works is something that I personally started to do. And so again, for my younger colleagues, I think today's a good day to start if you haven't yet. So can technology enhance learning? And in particular, I still like old technology. This is technology. I love old technology. In fact, the older I get, the more love I'm finding for book and pen and pencil. I do have a smartphone, so I have everything here, but worlds apart, but I love old technology. And so, but today I want to talk about not so much the book and the pen, but newer technology. And so, can ICTs enhance learning? And so I'm framing those as questions because, you know why? Perhaps if the answer was an obvious yes, some of our students would not be emailing us and abusing us about why things are not on Moodle or on Facebook, or why don't we have WhatsApp group. And so there are still lots of questions. A lot of us are still resistant. And so for me, I think maybe there is still that question. Can technology enhance learning? And so I've been trying to look at this from different perspectives. And what I thought about was reading this great paper by Professor Tara Fenwick, who writes about education and the socio-material perspective. And to summarize all of that, without going through the slide, is that material things, according to this perspective, does affect what we do. It's just, if I had to tell you that in a very, very short way, that's it. Does affect what we do. And by affect, I mean both negative and positive. And we see that more and more now with what we call educational technology. There is a lot of things going on there. So materials, according to this, actively influence learning and teaching practices. And we know that if we think about chalk, blackboard, pen, paper, learning itself, according to Professor Fenwick is a material matter, and educational processes, according to her, are in fact temporary socio-material achievements. And so, for me, that has kind of given me, it has helped me to think that, look, I can't escape this. I don't know yet how well this works or how it's working for me. But here is somebody saying to me that this thing is there. Our students have it, we do have it, our universities have expectations of us to use technology in whatever form. It's there, it's not going away. We're going to have different forms. So let's think about it. And so what I'm saying, again, to my colleagues, and I want to speak to my colleagues, that perhaps we don't have a choice but to get to dive in. But we also have to learn about how things work. So there's this brilliant paper, I just extracted some quotes. So in educational research, therefore, Sorensen argued in 2009 that there was a blindness towards the question of how educational practice is affected by materials, whether it's technology as in modern ICTs or older technologies, a consequence of which was a general tendency to grossly underestimate materials as a mere instrument to advance educational performance. And so I'm thinking a little bit more about the materiality of educational technology and technology in general that so materials which, things that matter are often missing from accounts of learning and practice. Materials tend to be ignored as part of the backdrop for human action, dismissed in a preoccupation with consciousness and cognition, or relegated to brute tools subordinated to human intention and desire. And so, when we talk about materials, what are we talking about? So materials, whether they're objects, bodies, technologies, the setting, permit some action and prevent others. And this caught me as I was reading. Permit some actions and prevent others. Why it caught me? There are times when I would say something like, okay, so I will set up a Facebook group, and then at the end of the class, a group of students will come to me and say, well, I don't have internet. And so what seems obvious, the obvious thing to do by me and by many of, especially the younger students in the class, sometimes is not the obvious thing to do. And so if I proceed like that, what I'm actually doing is perhaps even creating a broader divide. And so for me, that is a very important thing as I was reading this. So according to, and I'm going to close this off in a minute, so just some background things, all right? So there are 4 socio-material perspectives that are shared by, and this is only one view from Professor Fenwick. According to this view, there are 4 things we must think about. Shared commitments, shared understandings, uncertainty, and that is embracing emergence, and then system and connectivity. And so what I'm doing is I'm thinking about, my practice individually and as an individual, and how the way I operate and how I embrace or not embrace technology, how might that be shaping how I approach my work and my teaching and so on. So I just put those out there, and I guess if you're giving a presentation, you want to sound smart. So that was my way of sounding a little bit smart. But, I now talk about TEI, Technology Enhanced Learning. So what is it? So it's a really loaded term. Technology for one, what technology are we talking about? Enhancement, what enhancement are we talking about? And what do we mean by learning? So Professor reminded us this morning that learning is not really taking content from your head really and putting it in the head of your students. And maybe sometimes I still think that content is important, but I think it's a valid question to ask. So what is that? TEL also implies some value judgment. If you're talking about enhancement, then whose enhancement? What enhancement? Who is deciding what is the standard and what should be enhanced? And if you follow the educational technology space, there is a very big corporate drive where technology developed by big companies for profit, and because there is a lot of that, we're finding now pushback because people are saying the influence is now the kind of influence we want. So it's used to describe the application of the ICTs to teaching and learning, very, very broadly. And so I'm not talking about e-learning, I'm not talking about using Moodle, I'm talking about anything. In this case, any ICTs. I'm not talking about book and pencil. So a couple more questions, and I guess I'm asking more questions because I don't have a lot of answers. So does technology enhance learning for my young colleagues? How can we design and use technology to enhance learning? How can we measure that enhancement? What will be enhanced? And when should we use that in our teaching and learning? How will it be achieved? And then critically, how do we determine that enhancement has happened? And that is suggesting that we have to perhaps evaluate, research, talk about what we do, reflect, and do all of those things. So is the enhancement concerned with increasing technology use? Is it concerned with improving the circumstances or the environment in which educational activities are undertaken? Is it about improving educational practices? Is it about quantitatively or qualitatively improving students' learning? So very many questions. What are we enhancing? What are we thinking about when we do? And as I reflect on this, there are several things that I try personally to do, and you will see from my case studies in a minute. TEL is really positioned largely as material things that can improve efficiency, so we can do our assignments more efficiently. We can enhance, as we talked about just now, and then perhaps transformation is something we want to do. And then, as I close up this part of the session, and maybe if you're not thinking about doing this, and maybe most of us are already in this, so what should guide your TEL project? So if you leave today and say, look, I'm going to try to explore some technology with my teaching and my learning, what types of technology intervention might be connected with my teaching and my learning? How should I conceptualize this? And what evidence should I consider as appropriate for what I'm doing or what I'm about to do? Do we want to replicate? Do we want to supplement? Or do we want to transform? And maybe we want to do all three of those at different levels. So again, more questions. What might we focus on? Operational improvement, submitting those grades on time, online, so that students don't have to come and check for them. Do we want quantitative changes? Do we want to give more content? There is so much content now that in itself is a problem. Do we want qualitative change? Do we want to have our students operate in an environment where, like Professor said, he used to come and meet with the other professors and the other colleagues and talk about things. Maybe we can do that in a different space now. What is it that we want? So I think I am giving myself 5 more minutes. So what about me? And what about what I want to share with you in 5 minutes? And what have I been doing? So I'm not a big fan of Moodle. And I want to confess that openly. Not that I think that Moodle is not good. In fact, my own studies are conducted very, very well in a Moodle environment. But for some reason, I haven't yet gotten that little tickle, if you like, about Moodle. I'm using it a little bit more. In fact, strange story, a student emailed me 2 nights ago, and said, why is the sign-up sheet not on Moodle? Why are you lecturing? Really abusive, I think. But I thought he had a point, so I had to point him to where all the things are because he didn't check that this thing was in, and that's part of the challenge too. So I have been using good old Facebook for a long time. I'll tell you a story. A lot of people don't like Facebook, and I also don't like Facebook for some things. I don't put my life story out. But I have found it very, very, very interesting for doing some things. I have checked in the last 10 years that my students, when I send something by email, Moodle, or Facebook, they get it first on Facebook. That's where they get things from. It's suggesting something to me. Generally, not everybody. So I've been using Facebook. It was easy to use then. We didn't have Moodle then, by the way. So we had to search for other things. And I was online already, and I was using the space to do some of my own learning. And I was finding materials and people and other things to do. So I want to talk about Facebook quickly, and then PeerWise is a very nice tool, and they're very contrasting because they help me do two different things. And then I want to close off by sharing some studies we've been doing locally around technology and learning. So I've just taken some snapshots of some old courses I have on Facebook. So I started off with another younger colleague then, and I'm saying younger because 10 years ago I was 30. So, and I don't realize that I'm now 10 years older. But we said, let's try something. So students are there, we have some small classes, can we meet them? Can we meet them after class when they need us? And we started doing it. So we set up groups on our courses, and we should do basic things. Share materials, tell them, what's going on, remind them about classes tomorrow, what we're going to discuss, and do basic things. Fundamental stuff. I think we started experimenting with a bit of teaching, but it never worked out. And I'll tell you something here very quickly, that if we never try that, we never know what would work and what didn't work. And we quickly realized, and we've written a little bit about it, that social media is not good for teaching in the traditional sense. It doesn't work. That is what we found in our context. But it's good for very many things. Good for communication, good for connecting, good for pointing your students to places where they themselves can, but don't try doing what you do offline. On Facebook, it does not work. And other studies have shown that too. The students want their social space, at least in our context, to be. And that is lesson number one. But does it work? Yes, it works for some things. Now, that's my experience, and from what we have worked with, we don't know if it will work for you. So, I'm just kind of pointing to a whole list of courses that I've created over the last 8 to 10 years. Some of them are still there very much, but they have helped a lot, and I'm connected with my students. Now, there's a risk with that. If you're always connected, you're always at work. Students will message you at 2 a.m. in the morning with a problem, because maybe that's the time they're studying. So I'm not unconscious really about those challenges. And we have to plan around that. We didn't have Moodle, so I shared my notes on Facebook. And those are my slides, so that worked really well. And so I'm rushing, but I'm going to point you to some papers if you want to read about some local experiences at the end. But Facebook has worked really, Facebook groups, not Facebook at large. Groups have worked really, really well. For us, there are some things we were able to do well, but don't use it to teach formally, it's not going to work. And if you have big classes, it's even worse, right? So that is about what I think about enhancing my learning by being in the space where my students are, by being available to my students, taking the risk of connecting, but then also thinking about the ways they themselves can think about how communities can help them enhance their own learning even after they have left university. So it's also kind of modeling how I think development should happen. So there's this other tool, PeerWise. Has anybody ever heard of PeerWise? Now PeerWise is a free online tool, and I happen to know, I wrote Paul Denny, who was the guy who created it, and he's from New Zealand, he just finished his PhD, he wrote a PhD on it. So I found it, and then I wrote him, and I said, can I have an account? So you can do all these things online, right? Again, it's a risk. And so PeerWise is a tool that allows for what I call to facilitate this thing that is called the contributing student pedagogy to that. So what students can do with PeerWise is you can set up a PeerWise task for your course, and it allows them to write multiple choice questions, submit those, so it's assessment as learning, an assessment for learning, not assessment of learning. They can create their multiple choice questions, their colleagues can answer those, and then over time you can generate a whole bank of questions So here's what, I'm not creating the question, I'm not asking them, they're doing that. I give them some topics and I tell them to create 3 to 5 questions, and they go opportunity for students to engage in a different way. Peerwise was perfect for that. So I just kind of put a few snapshots to tell you that I actually did do this. So those are some of my courses. These are students. Then we have the old registration number. I can go and see what they have done. I can see the questions they are writing. I did some performance analysis because I wanted to know, does this thing work? So can students really write questions? If they understand the material, can they write good questions as a way of expressing what they learn? The system can show you patterns, and you notice students will go close to test and exam time to answer questions. And there are ways you can maybe encourage them to do that by saying, I'll take the best questions from there. Please go look at them, but you can think about that. All of that to say that what I've learned quite a lot from my little foray is that what I've read in the papers from elsewhere don't always work here. Our students are not necessarily different, but our situations are peculiar. And so we have to think about what we do, and then critically, I would say, reflect on what you do. I'll tell you one last story. When I started doing this wasn't the kind of work university scholars do because it was too simplistic. When I tell people I'm writing a paper on how my students use Facebook, people are like, is that research really? So you have to deal with that. But I would say to any of my colleagues now, if you are using emails to facilitate your students, reflect on it, write something about, tell us what you've learned, let's advance, start, don't worry about who's telling you that's too simple. I think that's the message I want to leave with my colleagues. I started doing it, and then what I find is after 1 or 2 years, I'm reading more, I'm able to understand this thing a bit more, I have more questions, I can now go and dig the theory a little bit more, and so my own writing, my own understanding of it has improved. Starting with those little conference papers and presentations that were, basically saying, this is what I found, this is what is there. And so, I say this to say that, not because I have some publications, but because I think it is really important that if you're trying things, that think about what you're doing, reflect on the experience, and then let's find a way to share that as well. Because what we'll find is that a lot of the contextual things are important for us, and if we read from experiences from elsewhere, it may not work. So I've written a few, and this is a couple on peerwise. I've written 2 papers on peerwise, and Paul, who's created the tool and wrote his PhD on it, very generously cited my work in his PhD thesis. And for me, that has helped me a little bit to think about how what I do contributes a little bit. And I think I really want to say that to my talk. Everybody can be a researcher around technology-enhanced learning. And in the space of the scholarship of teaching and learning, you could be researching political science, chemistry, biology, but on the side, you might have interest in this. You might be using a lot of this, and maybe you can tell us. So I think you can do that. Now I'm saying, everybody, just don't go away and just start doing this alone. Continue doing your great science work and technology and all of that. But this is important. We've also been looking at the mobile phone. The smartphone and the mobile phone in our context, in Ghana and the Caribbean. And we've been testing a model called the UTOP model. And I'll tell you something. We've found that what studies have shown from, especially the global north, about technology and mobile adoption does not hold. The model is not holding up. Because when you think in hindsight, there are so many contextual things that are different. Simple things as access is not there. And we're now questioning whether the model can work for us, and we're now working on developing a model for that might fit the Caribbean and the Guyana context. So there's some work, and I'm finished there. I'm sorry if I sound like I was showing off a little bit at the end. That is not my intention. It's just to show that doing this can lead you into your own research, your own teaching. But I think more importantly, reflect on your practice. Make adjustments as you go along. So, thank you for giving me the extra few minutes and for listening to me so attentively. I'm done.
So what we do, we move straight into the next presentation, and then after that we have questions, short question session. Technology. While we're waiting for the changeover to Shannon, just to say to Len, thanks, and I have also used your work because it's there and it really relates to our context. It helps you to understand what else you can do and how you can do it differently. And it's also nice to see our colleagues' name when you Google and see Lensing pop up. You understand? And Lensing from the University of Guyana. You understand? So then congratulations. Let's see. And I haven't Googled the rest of yours yet, but you know, now that I have a list, I'll Google you to see what you've done or what you do. Do we have, maybe we should take some, anybody have any questions for Len?
Hold on question.
Oh, you're ready. Okay, wonderful.
All right, good morning, colleagues. I want to start by saying that Ben and I both embrace technology in the classroom, however, from different perspectives, and it was quite interesting. I have a zero social media footprint, but I love Moodle. I love Moodle. My courses are done entirely on Moodle, from start to finish. My students receive their course outlines via Moodle, they do their final exams via Moodle. Everything is done on Moodle. I'm able to track my students. So when they come to me and they say, Miss, we couldn't submit the assignment, I'm able to go on Moodle and say, how is that a difficulty? You have not been on this platform for the last 3 weeks. I'm able to do all of that. And so we are going to have a different conversation in the next few minutes. But fortunately or unfortunately for you, my presentation today only focuses on assessment. So I am unable to tell you about all the other wonderful features of Moodle this morning. But I belong to the Faculty of Earth and Environmental Sciences. My telephone number seems to be on the walls of the washroom, so you can find me. Should you need any assistance, I'm ready and willing to provide. So how are we enhancing? May I ask that this be relocated so that it does not affect my mobility? I like to walk around. How can we enhance the assessment experience using Moodle, both from the perspective of the lecturer as well as from the perspective of the students? What can we do in Moodle? So when we talk about assessment, I see a lot of education faces here. I'm a little nervous about having to have this conversation with you. But I'm jumping in like Len into the deep. So when we talk about assessment, we're basically just looking for ways to evaluate how our students are learning. Whether what we're doing is making any sense, making an impact. That's basically what we're trying to do. And I know that from the education perspective, you want to see all of this in terms of types of assessment. You want to see all of this in terms of the kind of questions students are required to answer. subjective things in the essays, how they will express themselves, what they can write, what they can argue. You want to see all of that. And many of us are of the view that that can only happen on paper. No, it cannot. I also share Len's love of the notebook. I'm very old-fashioned where that is concerned. I have to write things down. But we can do this all on Moodle. Whether you want your questions to follow Bloom's taxonomy, different style of questions from knowledge to evaluation, you can also do that on Moodle. So what is this Moodle? What is Moodle? For those of us who have not engaged at all in it, it's the modular, object-oriented, dynamic learning environment, and it is. It is. So what is it that I can do on Moodle in terms of assessment? You will forgive me on this side here, the scroll is blocking me, so I'm going to be pointing mainly to the board that is directly in front of me. What can we do on Moodle in terms of assessment? You'll see we can do assignments. We can chat, we can do choice, we can do forums, we can do your lessons, we can do quizzes, we can do a wide array of things on Moodle. Now, while I love the notebook and I must write things down, you would not be able to read what I have written down. A little over 2 decades ago, my father said to me, young lady, you need to stop going to school. If your handwriting is in this form at this point, I don't know what is going to happen to your lecture. And perhaps this is why I love Moodle. I don't mark handwriting. So there is little struggle for me to figure out what my students have written. Everything comes tight. I don't know if I were to be the one writing, what my lecturers would be doing with me and my grades. We'd probably be fighting all the time. But we have all of these options on Moodle that you can use. The beautiful thing about Moodle, because of our dynamic learning environment, because our students are coming from all over the place, because our students are working very important people. Sometimes they have to be out of the country, sometimes they have to be out of town. It is a challenge to always be present in the classroom. Moodle allows the student to be wherever the student needs to be, as long as the student has access to the internet. The student is able to follow the class material. The student is able to submit assignments, because the timelines are no longer at the close of business. Business is never closed. So the timeline can be 5 minutes to midnight, so that the student is able to leave work at 4:30 and go home and finish off their assignment and submit it later on. It allows that opportunity. When we talk about tests, we have all of these options as well. So it's not only about a straightforward multiple choice option. You can have many options if you want them to select. You can be from the Faculty of Technology and you can put in a math question. You can be from the Math Department, Faculty of Natural Sciences, you can put in a question. You can be from the Math Department, Faculty of Education and Humanities, and you can put in a question. Because they allow you to enter using formally and everything. Of course, these are not features I use. I'm from the Faculty of Earth and Environmental Sciences. We like to talk and share opinions. So you have a wide variety of question styles that you can use. Now I know that some persons, particularly particularly those who have small classes, they like the essay. The essay is also in the questions. But you also have the opportunity to use the forum and the assignment for students to submit essay pieces. I use the forum for conversation between and among students. So I give them some reading, or there is a question, and they are required to give their point of view on that question. And then the students are allowed to critique their point of view. And they have to do all of this within a confined word limit. And you can do all of that on Moodle. But I want to focus the presentation today on tests. Because Vice Chancellor is sitting in front of me here, and Ms. Henry commented on it earlier, and my students have been bombarding me over the last few weeks about it as well. Everybody likes to write an assessment and know what they did. But for some of us, it's a challenge to our health when we have to wait a long time for the results. We can't sleep, we can't eat. You know, what did I do? What did I do today? Oh, what? So, we have the option of Moodle. We have the option of Moodle where, depending on the type of assessment that you give to your students, they can receive feedback immediately. They write their tests, they click submit when they are finished, and immediately they have their score. They're also immediately able, should you give them access, they're also immediately able to review their test papers. It has a section for the correct answer, why that answer is correct, why their answer is incorrect. And you can fill in all of those boxes, so when they receive that feedback, they know how to proceed down the road immediately. All of these options here offer us an immediate response. Now you will notice that short answer and calculated also end up in the manually graded section for me. Students are not going to give you the exact answer that you have in your marking scheme. And we have to embrace the limitations of technology, even as we embrace all of its advantages. If in my mark sheet I have a comma and the student has a full stop, the student will be graded as incorrect. Now, when I was going to school, one of the big things for us in school was spelling. You have to know how to spell. I'm not sure what happens in the schools these days. But I cannot at all times downgrade my students for poor spelling. If the word is spelled incorrectly, Moodle will mark it as incorrect. However, in my classroom, if the word is recognizable as the answer, then I grade the student correct. So if the student spells correct C-O-R-E-C-T, I do not hold it against them. I will go back to the classroom and I will let them know that I found all these interesting spelling and that they should do something about it next time. But I don't penalize them for it. those that have anything that varies from the mark scheme and is also correct is rewarded positively. I imagine that in the calculated questions, person would mark for process as well as for answer. So you may want to go back through your calculated questions and grade for process as well as for correct answer. Now, why I like this? I give my test, the student gets their response immediately, or in the cases where I have short answer and so on, it's a little delayed because I have to go through that section. But then Moodle gives me a spreadsheet. This is an actual spreadsheet, so I will put the names of the students that I can easily download. You're interested in this column here. You have your total grade, and I can download it in whatever format I'm interested in. I can download it immediately after the test, or I can download it at the end of the semester when I'm about to prepare my coursework assessment. So what Moodle gives to me is a spreadsheet of all the grades that they would have earned throughout the semester, and I format that according to the requirements of the University of Guyana, and I submit. So, what is the experience from the perspective of the student? You've heard my experience. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this morning you have the delight of being a student. You get to experience what the students will experience. And so I have prepared a quiz for you. Unlike my students, they have to do it individually. You will be allowed to do it collectively. So the quiz today is, how well do you know your university? I couldn't give you a science quiz or a math quiz or an environment quiz. I had to give you something that everybody ought to know. How well do you know your university? And so we are going to do our quiz this morning. I didn't need to, because okay, so we see here some basic information. When it will open, when it will close, and then you require a password. So that if the students are doing the quiz in the CIT next door, which is where my quizzes are usually conducted, only the people who are in the room at the time can do the quiz. It's open, but you at home cannot do it because you need a password to access that quiz, which is only, of course, given to you in the classroom. So here we are. We are going to our quiz. And you get to answer. So we have the first question up. You will note that the computer is timing you, and you have only 2 minutes to answer these 5 questions, so you have to move briskly. So the first question says, the University of Guyana was established on A, October 1, 1963, B, July 1, 1963, C, August 1, 1963, or D, September 1, 1963? A? Now, before I move, I want someone to remember the question, the step, and I want someone to remember what A was, what B was, what C was, and what D was. Okay, so you're D, you're C, you're A, and the table, the BBC, is B. So you remember what the responses are. Alright? Just for number 1. So we have A. The next question, who was the 8th Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Guyana? Nigel Harris, Lawrence Harrington, Jacob Obaday, or Harold Lutchman? Who was the 8th Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Guyana? Do I have an answer? B? Alright, we're run out of time here. The university has 3 deputy vice chancellors and how many assistant registrars? 4, 6, 3, or 5? 5. And you will note that you have been locked up. Because your time has expired. There is no pencils down, and the front is handing out their papers, and the back is still writing. Pencils down for everybody. Alright, so what is your score? So as soon as it is finished, you have your score. And you can see how well you've done. Now, for the student. For the student, you get to review your paper immediately. So you get to see what you did and whether it was correct. Were you able to put in that answer, you would have gotten 5 correct. So we had matched the vice chancellors and their areas of expertise. And the last one was university and has how many faculties and schools. Easy test. But what you see is that from the time the test is submitted, or if your time expires, the student gets their score. No one comes to you 1 day, 2 weeks, or any time later to ask you, Miss, when we get our papers? Because they get their score immediately, and their score remains online in their individual grade book for the duration of the semester. Now, I want to show you one more thing before we close. I want you to remember the questions I asked you, the things I asked you to remember. I want to show you one other feature of the assessment. While that is working, for you as a student, what is your take on your experience? You were a student just now, you wrote your test, you got your response, you got your feedback? Oh, well, I agree with you completely. I believe that anyone who writes a test should get a B. Yes.
You need more time.
You need more time? Okay. I was only given 15 to 20 minutes, so I couldn't give you a whole lot of time, but the students are given more than enough time to get their work done. Any other feedback?
One from this experiences. And I'm a student and I belong out all because the internet would have been the cost of me being up on the whole internet access. What procedure you have in place for me as a student to gain the advantage of writing that?
Okay, well, we have that experience a lot. And I see the head of CIT laughing in the corner there. But we do have that experience, right? What Moodle allows you to do is to change the timing. Right? So last academic year, last semester actually, I had an exam where for some reason the internet was very slow in one particular room. It was working fine in the other two rooms, but in one particular room we had a challenge. Right? It would simply mean that we factor in how much time the student would have lost, not only in terms of work time, at least that's how I do it, not only in terms of work time, but in terms of stress time. And we add that time to the clock. Right? So that the student gets this additional time. So the test was supposed to be 2 minutes. Because of the difficulties, the student would end up having 10 minutes to do the test. Because it would be the 2 minutes that should have been the 3 minutes of downtime that we have to compensate for because the clock doesn't stop. As well as the time when the student might have been fretting before they raise their hand to come to ask for assistance. So they get every opportunity to complete their assessment. Now what I was trying to show you, but that's not what happened this morning, what I was trying to show you was that in setting up the tests on Moodle, the next time this test would come up for another student, if each student was opening it up, they would have a different question 1. They would have a different question 1, they would have a different A, a different B, a different C, a different D. Because the options are randomized and the entire test is shuffled. So in a room of, I don't know how many we have here, 7? Every time you click start a test, the test is shuffled and the options are randomized. So if you are trying to help your friend by whispering B, you might be doing more harm than good. If you are whispering for assistance for question 5, your question 5 may be my question 75. So it offers you that opportunity. Of course, it eliminates the need for paper, and it allows you to have your information immediately, so that the submission of your mark sheet, which will please the Vice Chancellor, can happen the next day, irrespective of the size of the class. Last semester I had a class of 371. You get the exam done, you download the spreadsheet, you put it in the format usually requires, and you can submit. The mark scheme is already there, everything is already ready. And you can submit. So I would advocate to all of my colleagues, in whichever faculty you are in, if you are already doing multiple choice assessments with your students, short answer assessment with your students, that you try Moodle. One of the challenges people usually complain about is the first time having to enter the information. We don't have time today to show you how quickly you can enter a question. But your teaching allocation doesn't change dramatically year after year. So if you invest the time this year to enter the information, you don't have to invest the time the next year. What you invest the time in is adding to the pool. But the pool is already there, and you can administer your assessments. Moodle, for me, has worked really, really well, and so I highly recommend it to you. I would highly recommend it to you. Remember, you can reach out to me if you are interested, and if you are desirous of using it, and if you have any challenges. Thank you.
Before the questions, I just want to share what I learned about half an hour ago. Ms. Shannon Rose is one of UG's Moodle champions. Give her a round of applause.
Yeah?
Could we have one question and answer session, Ms. Malapati?
Yes.
Just hold it right down there.
Moderator will indicate what.
Good morning, Dr. Kevin here. I'm a new lecturer at the Study School.
Sorry, we're not having a question. No, sorry. I just hold it, Ms. Malapati.
I'm here to share my experiences with technology. Okay, my name is Kavita Malapati. I'm not a Mauritian. I'm a very proud Chinese citizen. I applied for citizenship before oil was discovered. And I'm committed to offer my services to Diana, and I really enjoy my journey here. And I'm here for the past 15 years. And I'm working at the University of Diana for the past 9 years. And some of you know that I was a shaker. But one thing I learned is whenever I have a question about technology and I ask him, he would say, go and figure it out. That was a good approach. So that's how I learned, how to integrate more into my teaching. And I realized that it was really fun, to play with technology. Okay, so my topic today is beyond PowerPoint, right? What else? So that's my topic. Before this program was created, I was working on those lines. Because in 2010, when I was doing master's program in nursing education, I'm a lecturer in nursing program in Faculty of Health Sciences. I invited one of the visiting faculty to come and evaluate my classroom teaching as a part of my coursework requirement. He is from McMaster University, and I did an excellent PowerPoint presentation that was in 2010. I thought it was an excellent PowerPoint presentation. I used all the graphics and everything that would fascinate my students, and I was able to deliver in a comfortable way, and I thought I did pretty good. So when I received evaluation from him, he said I did a good job as an educator, but however, then when you say however, and it was 3 pages of constructive criticism, and how I did not involve students in class. Right? They could see my presence as a teacher, but they could not see, he could not see students' participation, which was not planned at that time. So since then, I realized that tool to use technology. So I'm happy here to share my views. Teaching and learning is fun. So what happened to me was I learned, as I was doing my education program, that the paradigm is shifted now from instructional paradigm to learned paradigm. And earlier, Vice Chancellor was asking which is the most important word, and indeed it is student. The student is the chief agent in any university. And also I strongly believe that today's students are tomorrow's colleagues. So we have to respect them. We have to identify their needs as learners. And we have to create an environment which facilitates good learning. So I started my journey in this, discovering different learning styles of students and how I can be a help to them to motivate and to facilitate learning. So in nursing program, what I did was, as earlier speaker, Mr. Len was talking about, we go through different issues in a context where we are teaching. So my teaching, I have a plan for a contextual teaching. That means I use PowerPoint, I used Moodle, I also used social media, which is WhatsApp. So I have integrated several other modes so that my teach outcome would be more effective. So many of you are here educators. One good thing about teaching at universities, our students are coming here with experience background. They have an experience to share with us, to bring it to the table, so that we could help them to build on that knowledge which they already have, whatever may be their background. So they are highly motivated. All they require is only guidance, and I will share with you how my students were motivated and how many opportunities are open for them to explore their knowledge. I'm going to share with you in a few moments. And we also know about Bloom's taxonomy. I heard my colleagues talking about Bloom's taxonomy. Many times, we try to give notes to students and we ask them to repeat or regurgitate whatever they have received from us. But it is low level of teaching, which is just recalling. But as we move forward to excellence, it is involving students in applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So how we can do that is what we have to reflect on our teaching, and we have to figure out. So creation is a higher order of learning, whereas remembering and recalling is lower level of order. So this is a Chinese proverb which I like. So I put it here. If I hear, I forget it all about this. If I see, I remember. But if I do, I understand. So in teaching, in Bloom's taxonomy, we learned about 3 domains, which is cognitive domain, psychomotor domain, and affective domain. Sometimes it's easy for us to present knowledge, which is cognitive knowledge, and it's also easy for us to teach them, hands-on practice. But what about their attitudes? Molding their attitudes, their behaviors, is something which we need to focus on as facilitators. So PowerPoint is only one. Many people think it is the only one tool to use in classroom, and it is also done poorly. I can quote one example from my yesterday's class, Monday's class. So I was busy, teaching disorders of skin. And I have my notes on PowerPoint, and I was looking at my time. I have to finish like 20 or 30 slides in 40 minutes, in 1 hour time, and then also give them time for the interaction. So as I was doing, after 10 minutes, I realized one thing, that none of the students were with me. There was no expression on their faces. They were staring at me. Then I looked at the PowerPoint slide and I was scared because I was so worried. So they were lost. So immediately I have to stop the presentation, and I have to change the method of teaching. And I went home and I posted some online questions to them on Moodle, on skin. And also, I put some quiz, like how Ms. Shannon did, 5 points quiz, so they won't be, scared of taking a quiz. And I will show you how I have done presentation, students are off, right? They drift. So we have to know what are the other ways we can focus on. So what I did was I engaged students in higher level of learning, which is demonstration, discussions, doing in the classroom, and also teaching others. So students learn by a variety of methods. So that is the key word, variety of pedagogies, right? Using different, because learners are coming to us with different backgrounds, different learning styles. Unless we adopt a variety of teaching pedagogies, we won't be successful in imparting the knowledge of how to learn. Okay, so there are several online platforms that can be used beyond PowerPoint. So I want to share with you one thing which I was in part of Talmud technology, and Mr. Len was talking about that. This was an online program which I have taken in 2017. It's a collaboration between Commonwealth Learning and Athabasca University, Canada. And there we had to create online resources for global users, courses, and internet. That was really exciting for me. So I want to encourage you, if there are any opportunities, to take hold of those courses, online courses, which will enhance your knowledge in utilizing technology. And another thing I wanted to focus here is, through Talmud I learned about one term which is CoI model, which is a community inquiry. Right? Here they speak about the presence of the social presence. I have underlined that for you. Cognitive presence and teaching presence. So social presence is the one I want to highlight here, which is the background of your student. Many times we are busy with our teaching and our knowledge and so forth, but we do not include the experiences of students. You will be surprised, as when he was telling about peer-wise, right? I will tell you, and it's a very good term, peer-wise. So, like peer review. So things like that, would enhance learning. The presence of students, social presence is an important tool. Okay, so I wanted to talk about more about Moodle, because our champion here has spoken well about Moodle, and lately I started liking Moodle. So I hope this excitement is contagious. I got it from students, because one of the assignments they have done for me was utilizing the Moodle platform and doing a presentation on one of the disease conditions. It was well done. So I started using the Moodle platform in everything. So we know the benefits of Moodle. And so what are the modes we can use is videos, discussion forum. And one thing I can say about the discussion forum is sometimes we will be short of time and we don't have adequate time to engage students in certain scenarios where they have to use critical thinking, problem solving, decision making approaches. So discussion forum can be an effective tool, to post a scenario there so that students can share their views, about that particular case study. I found it interesting. And then of course quizzes and using synchronous chat. So we spoke about these announcements and chats, and then posting teaching material, etc. So these are the pictures I want to share with you that our students they use CoETaL and they thank the CoETaL staff for that, and we will dedicated internet to deliver this class. Where they have designed a demo course. In that course, they have incorporated aspects like this. You can see here the symptoms of sickle cell disease. It is an excellent way to upload your video there, and let students go through the video and then answer the quiz, which is in line with that video. And students found it fun, and the learning was very effective in that mode. And also we use audio file, and sometimes medical personnel they use audio sounds to teach students about lung sounds and heart sounds, and they have to identify, what is that sound. So it was an excellent tool for us. So it was designed by students and it was delivered by students. I was sitting there relaxing at the back. They did all the work, but before they implemented, my role was to facilitate. My role was to help them, to plan them. And once they have done that, and they will take over. So I am there only to assist them in case there is any concern. Another methodology we used using technology was, simulation games. And this also worked very well. And you can see here at the back, students have created a Jeopardy. In that Jeopardy, they would ask questions related to disease conditions like diabetes and hypertension. Of course, they have, prizes, whoever win the quiz and so on. It was excellent presentation. So I really want to encourage, you don't do all the hard work. Let students take over. You can be there to motivate them, to help them to figure out their learning styles. And you can see the excitement in the class. They really they were competing, who to answer to which question answer. Another model I used was demonstrations. So PowerPoint alone cannot meet the need of students. You have to use, other senses too. So they gather certain equipment and they have demonstrated, what is the knowledge they have and what more they want to build on that. So it was, students' feedback was very good on that. So we can see here, this is a regular class, this was not a career day or anything, but we see the interest and excitement in students once you guide them. They brought all equipment from the ICU and the hospital, and they wanted to demonstrate how to do certain procedures. And here you see, students are taking turn, how to do education, and even some of them do not work in those specialty areas, so they want to have an experience of doing that. And we also use a methodology called self-learning module. So you will post, a module online, and students will go in their own time, convenient for them, and they will finish that course. Okay, so this is what I was telling you about using Moodle platform for case studies. And this was done last semester, and I was teaching leadership and management course. There were several issues in management in the hospital setting to discuss. We may not have adequate time in the classroom to discuss all of that, but if you post a scenario which is more related to their context, and students can express themselves, and as your presence is there, and you can guide them, with their right track or not. So I found it very helpful in terms of your time management. That's one example, and then I also negotiation, another case study. Okay, these are some of the questions I normally post in assignments, activities, and so. So what I was doing earlier was, if there is a topic to teach, I work very hard, go to class, prepare, I prepare, go to class, and teach. And I say, I did a good job. But now I realize that it is not a good job. So what I do is, I create questions for them a day before and post it to them on Moodle, so they will read up on that and come prepared for the class, so that my teaching will be more easier. But it also give them certain pages to read on before coming to class, and also PowerPoint, so that some information they can gather. So here is a quiz on STEM, which I used quiz 1, 2, 3, and one of them was consisting of multiple choice questions, true or false, and another quiz was something like this image. So I put an image there about skin lesions, and they have to identify what is the name of that lesion. So it is really exciting for them, and it is fun. Okay, so in addition, what are the available online platforms for us at present? The health sciences, the Faculty of Health Sciences, we are fortunate to have a free online course for us now by University of Michigan. So it is a course named Instructional Methods for Healthcare Professionals in Teaching, where I learned about molding the attitude attitudes are good, their approaches would be different. So many times educators, we don't focus on that, but I think it is an important area. And then there is also CoETaL, which is an online platform. And there are free courses available for us, which are put up by University of Yale and the University of Stanford. So I encourage you, if you're interested in one of those free courses, enroll it. It will be for 5 or 6 weeks. At the end, you will have a certificate. And also for research, how to write scientific writing, there are free courses. I'm happy that our professor earlier, the speaker, was talking about professional development programs for educators. Because when we are educated and when we have adequate knowledge, we can also produce students who are intelligent, who are knowledgeable. Thereby, we are producing intelligent working force for the land. So let's not forget about that. Okay, so what about the future? So new presentation technologies are there, like Impress, slide rockets, and Impress. So these were used in animation, 3D animation. So it's not just PowerPoint, but it has features where your presentation can be more impressive. So you can go online and check it. But still, there is no other better tool than utilizing diverse methodologies in education. Thank you.
Now is, thank you very much. We're going to invite our 3 presenters to the front, and we're going to have 2 rounds of questions before we go to lunch. And if we don't see that table tackled at lunch, we're going to invite Professor Meyer to come. Okay? During lunch, yes. So we've had 3 good presentations, different perspectives, right? It's now an opportunity to ask questions. I know questions was coming from over here. I know my friend over here still has his hand up. He never put it down since he raised it the first time. So we're going to start with him and then come back to someone who wanted to ask a question over here. Sebi?
Yeah, good morning again. Dr. Kevin here, new lecturer at SETI. I have 2 questions, both regarding Moodle. The first, what applications are in Moodle regarding plagiarism and instances of cheating on tests? How do you handle that? And then outside of that, is Moodle a requirement for all departments? I'm asking because I'm coming from a tertiary institution where they use a similar platform by the name of Blackboard, and that was a requirement. So we had instances where students knew of this platform and knew they had to familiarize themselves with that platform, because I'm having students in my classes who are telling me they don't like Moodle, they don't want to use Moodle, and lecturers are giving them different platforms. So what is the university's view on making Moodle synchronous, if that's the right word, across all departments? Thank you.
Will not necessarily be answered by the first panelist, but we have Mr. Manapati here who can speak to that.
Good morning, everyone. The first question is about plagiarism. You might have heard me saying in other forums, at this point of time, we have only 300 student licenses for the entire university. Remember, we have 8,000 students, so there is no match. The Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic Engagement, Professor Michael Scott, he has instructed us to use those 300 licenses that we have for Turnitin exclusively for the postgrad, masters, and PhD programs that we have on the campus. That covers all of those students who are doing postgrad, masters, and PhD programs. Now, then what happens to the rest of the students? As my friend asked, what we are considering is that we can explore not just a technical department like us, but in consultation and collaboration with the academics like you, we want to explore open source. So Moodle has the features to integrate either Turnitin or an open source plagiarism check-in as part of the course. So it can be done, to answer your question. But as of now, we haven't explored or we haven't shortlisted what are the open source plagiarism checkers that we can implement for the University of Ghana. And I need Ms. Henry's support from this new center that is being established today. I'm looking forward to a greater collaboration in terms of, in consultation with academics and technical departments like us. We need to come up with those kind of solutions. Now the second point, some of the students do not like Moodle. Okay, all of us, you take anything. Somebody like a Toyota car, somebody like a Nissan car. The bottom line is, it boils down to the university policy. And just because our department is behind Moodle teaching and, Moodle training, and we promote Moodle, and she's our brand ambassador, Ms. Shalami Rose. But the point is, we have no problem. As a technical person, I'm very happy to have Blackboard also for the University of Ghana. I'm also happy to have Canvas, as our professor was saying, that he is familiar with. But the catch is, with the budget constraints that we have, I don't know, I can't speak for the Vice Chancellor, but he can speak later on. As far as my knowledge goes, we do not have the money to buy the licenses for Blackboard, Canvas, and a whole lot of stuff. Whereas Moodle is an open source learning management system and a course management system that is being used not just in the developing countries where we have budget constraints, all over the world. US, Australia, you name it. All the so-called advanced countries, they have been using Moodle. Of course, I'm not saying, for example, University of West Indies, they have been using Moodle, and they have also have Blackboard subscription. So that is something that we can definitely consider, provided the administration is willing to put the dollar on to purchase those softwares. As you heard from the last presentation, I strongly believe we need to have diverse technologies to deliver our courses. Not just Moodle, not just Blackboard. Whatever we can afford, either commercial or open source, we have to put it into practice for the benefit of our students. But again, sometimes the reality is, because we have shortage of human resources, we will be quite happy to maintain the status quo. But sometimes when lecturers come and challenge us, that's when we will be stretched. So feel free to come to us saying that I have this unique need, I'm not finding how to do things in Moodle and stuff like that. So up to yesterday, I have two of my colleagues, three colleagues who are in this room. They were in my room, they were in my office. We were discussing about a problem that they are having to help their students. So it's all, please feel free to contact me. Some of you might have received emails. My cell number is there in my email signature. Feel free to call me. And, we'll take it from there in consultation with, we'll involve academics like Shalami Rose and others who have been using Moodle. Thank you very much.
Just let me say something here. We use Canvas at FIU, and it has Turnitin automatically. One of the things I think we are exploring is to see whether there's a way to transfer our licenses for not only this, but other types of technologies based on project related or something else. So, it's not necessarily the case that you don't have it. It could be that working in conjunction with other universities, they may be able to transfer their technologies.
So we have the other colleagues up here.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I just had a simple question. In terms of, and I'm speaking directly to Ms. Rose and whoever else uses Moodle, when you give a multiple choice or multiple choice questions, as per the Bloom's taxonomy that you showed, the questions of course focus most on recall and knowledge. So my question is, how do you address the needs of those students who are not good at multiple choice questions, and questions so that you can test their ability at the other levels? Do you have another component other than just multiple choice, which will teach us recall and knowledge, basically?
All right. First off, let me say that multiple choice questions can test any level.
Exactly.
It has to do with how you design the question. Right? It can test application, it can test analysis, it can test synthesis. It's how you design the question. Right? So this is the first thing I want to clarify. The second thing is that for me, my exams are multiple choice because our class sizes are increasing significantly, right? And few other resources are being added at the same time. Right? During the course of the semester, my students have the opportunity to do research papers, to have discussions on forums, and to submit assignments. When I have 10 to 7 to 5 weeks to grade those assignments, I have 10 days for my final exam. And so my exams are multiple choice. My exams assess every level according to the taxonomy. And it's not complicated. I know that we don't all have the time to set questions, but we don't necessarily have to set questions. There are a lot of resources out there that come with your textbooks that you procure for your lectures. You have the instructor companion sites that provide you with questions, and when they provide you with questions, they tell you whether this question is knowledge, whether this question is application, whether this question is synthesis. And so you can pull from there and create an extensive pool of questions. They give you questions for every chapter. So if you have 3 or 4 books, and they all have instructor companion sites, you have a wealth of information. Of course, we have to bear Mr. Singh's comment in mind in terms of local context. And in that instance, then we have to set those questions. But given our areas of expertise, we have a wide pool of questions that are already set for a lot of the content. But all of my final exams at the moment are multiple choice. But you can still have all of the other options for your students. I'm not doing that at the moment.
I just want to add to what Ms. Rose said. To be more specific, we will create a scenario where you can ask questions on different levels. So there will be a scenario given and 5 or 6 questions related to that particular scenario. So you can ask at any level. It can be a synthesis and analysis, or it can be application questions based on that particular scenario given.
Someone's ability to apply, to analyze, to synthesize, it just cannot come from a one-word question. And a question gives you a one-word answer. But that's what I was glad to hear you say that that's the model that you use. But of course there will be other forms. I was just interested in in your content if you use those other types of questions.
And thank you for that question, which brings us to the other session that we're going to be having very soon on measurement and evaluation. So we will, in doing that, as we look at assessments and so on, it will help us to understand how we can use multiple choice and other traditional or non-traditional ways of answering and getting all the things that we want to do, right? So we are going in a very focused session. That's one, SEBI has already asked us to do that, but we're not going to only be doing it for SEBI, we're going to be inviting others to that session. So please hold, and we are going to come back within the next month. We are going to be having sessions across Berbice and Turkine and inviting our colleagues. Of course, we have all three of them here from IDC, but we're going to be inviting persons to more focus. So we'll flesh out in more in depth how we do all of what you're asking. Thank you. Are there any more questions? If no, could we please put our hands together for the presenter? What you would notice is that we have started going by table. So I'm inviting Mr. Patterson's table to go to lunch. We have started going to lunch, and as soon as you go, come back. In between, you can quietly slip out for your bathroom break, but we're not allowing you to go too far. Right? And your bathroom break is going to be monitored, so you don't stay too long in the bathroom. No smoking in the washroom. Right? But, so the next table, keep moving. This table can also go. Lunch is being served, and we're going to invite Professor Meyer to come to the front so that she sets up, and we're having that working lunch. So it's a real working day. So that's some music in the meanwhile.